Seattle just repealed a tax on large companies like Amazon and Starbucks that was aimed at tackling one of the city's biggest problems, homelessness. And now the city has reportedly just lost out on hosting a national business convention because of aggressive behavior, open drug use, and homeless people defecating on downtown streets. So it's not an easy problem to solve. Let's discuss it and a few more topics tonight with radio host at KGO AM, Ethan Behrman. Great to have you with us, Ethan.
Thank you, Shannon. Great to be here.
Okay, so I'm going to read part of a letter that comes from the American Pharmacy Association. They'd sent an advance team to scout out Seattle as a possible place for their 6,300 people to come for convention. They said this, what they found: 2 men urinating on the street, 1 man who defecated on himself. We witnessed 3 young addicts sitting outside of a major establishment smoking from a pipe. 1 was passed out. 1 man aggressively pursuing a member of our team down the street demanding cash. We lost count of the number of people walking around talking to themselves. The smell of urine and marijuana near the convention center and along the routes of our hotels to the center. They said no thanks. And listen, the visitors group and convention center there is now very worried about this. They sent this along to city leaders and said, our city is falling apart.
Yeah, it's tragic, right? These are people who actually need help desperately. It's both a health issue for the rest of the community. It's a health issue for the individuals that we're talking about that were homeless, that were urinating, that were defecating, that were using drugs, whatever. This is a difficult issue that needs to be addressed. And by the way, it can't just be on the city of Seattle, the city of San Francisco, the city of Los Angeles. This really requires federal resources because not all of these homeless people are local, originally from Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles. They are coming from other parts of the country, but because you can live through winter on the West Coast, this is the safe place to shelter.
One analyst points out that in 2005, Seattle launched a 10-year program to rid homelessness, and now the numbers are higher than when they started the program. He says that 10 cities and areas are subsidized by the city. They actually encourage some of this behavior, and they're rewarding it, and by subsidizing it, you're going to get more of it. What do you make of that argument?
Well, the problem, let's get to the root cause here, cost of housing. So we have a nationwide shortage of housing. On the West Coast in particular, we have an exceptional shortage of housing, affordable housing. So if we can't afford to live in houses, even people who don't necessarily have mental health issues, maybe aren't fleeing abusive homes, which is another subset of the homeless population, there are people who simply can't afford to live, and so they are on the streets. We have to address the cost of housing, but we have to change some of the laws because there are people with real serious mental health issues that need our help and care. And the way that most of the laws are written today is we're not allowed to infringe on what are perceived as their civil rights, but we need to give them that care so they can get better and live a productive life again.
And one article that I read said a guy that had worked with homelessness and volunteered quite a bit for years said that other cities know how welcoming Seattle is, and that they actually sometimes, people who've been arrested in other cities, they give them a bus ticket and send them to Seattle. So that's another issue. I want to talk to you also. We're waiting the Supreme Court ruling about whether or not, in this case, the plaintiff is a public school teacher in California. He doesn't want to be forced to join a union and pay the dues. So the Supreme Court is now ruminating on that. We could get the decision as early as Monday morning. The American Federation of Teachers attorney Randy Weingarten, a prominent voice out there, had this to say: the notion that somebody else is going to try to take away our power to have a voice has blanked off, I won't say it, my grandmother's listening, our members. You can guess what the word is. But the fact is, this teacher says, you're taking away my First Amendment right by making you give me my money to endorse your message as a union. What do you think?
Well, I mean, in this case, so the teachers voted to unionize, and they have, and as a result, there's collective bargaining. That other teacher is benefiting from what the union has negotiated, is getting a salary, getting benefits based on how that union is negotiated. So if you don't want to pay the dues, start an effort to decertify the union. That actually has happened here in California in the agricultural regions, at Garawan Farms, for example. So you can decertify a union if you don't like what the union is doing, but the overwhelming majority of teachers here do want the union and support the union. We just have a couple of people who are apparently unhappy with it.
Well, we'll see. You need 5 on the Supreme Court to win one way or the other in this, and we'll see what they decide. Quickly, I want to ask you about Senator Lindsay Graham. He's a frequent guest on this show. On another network, he was talking about people who are critical of the president. He says, you know, I work with him. If you don't like me working with him to try to make the world a better place, I don't give a blank. What do you make of that?
You know, Lindsey Graham is an interesting character, especially since he sadly lost the primary in 2016, the Republican primary. Here's what I have to say about this for Lindsey Graham and some of the others, but particularly Lindsey tonight. As Senator Graham, I want to say this. I support you in wanting to work with people with whom you might disagree on certain topics. This is what's actually missing in politics right now is if I'm of a different party, if I don't agree with you on one topic, doesn't mean I can't work with you on any other topic. Americans need to find a way to start communicating, need to start working together again. I won't use the word that he used either because we can't anyway, but and your grandmother is watching, you said, Shannon. But the point is without that language, let's work together, find areas of commonality, and move our country forward. I support him in it.
All right, Ethan Behrman, have a great weekend. Great to have you with us.
Shannon, thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. All right, time